Hi there, everybody. In this set of Cornell Notes, we are going to cover information from lessons 4.2 and 4.3, and we're going to talk about the three types of percent problems. Our essential question today is, how do I solve problems involving percents? Number 1, what is the percent proportion? Well, you may remember back from topic 3 where we talked about ratios and proportions and how proportions represented equal ratios. And the percent proportion is simply a statement that shows two ratios that are equal. The percent proportion shows the part to whole ratio, and it equals the percent over 100 as the second ratio. When you're solving the percent proportion, you'll know two of the three pieces of that proportion. The part, the whole, and the percent are those three pieces. The number 100 is always going to be the denominator of the percent ratio. Consider this example. If you have 3 apples out of 5 pieces of fruit, what percent of your fruit are apples? The first thing you need to do is set up the ratio that represents the part to whole of apples and pieces of fruit, and then compare that to the percent over 100. So your proportion looks like this. Next, what you want to do with the percent proportion is you can look for the how to get from the denominator 5 to the denominator 100. And that's as easy as multiplying by 20. And remember, whatever you do to the bottom part of a fraction, you have to do the same thing to the top. Therefore, the p-value in the top of that second fraction is equivalent to 3 times 20, which is 60. So that means 60% of your fruit are apples. In the percent proportion, all you're doing is looking to see how you can keep those ratios equivalent. Number 2, what is the percent equation? The percent equation states that the part is equal to the percent written in its decimal form times the whole. And this is an equation that we will come back to over and over and over again throughout the rest of this topic. Consider the inverse of the problem that we solved in the percent proportion. How many apples do you have if 60% of your 5 fruits are apples? Well, we already know the answer is 3, but let's take a look at how the percent equation will look when we set it up and solve to find that number. Since we are looking for the part of our whole 5 fruits that are apples, the part is the piece that is missing. In this case, we know that we have 60% of our apples, so that's the 60% right here in decimal form, and that 5 represents the total amount of fruit. So what we're looking for here is the part. And in this case, the part is equal to 60% in decimal form times the whole number 5. And when we do that, we find out that the part equals 3. And you can try that on your calculator just to make sure. Question 3. What if the whole value is missing? 40% of what number is 100? Well, we need to translate this and figure out which piece is the part, which piece is the percent, and which piece of this is the whole. When I look at this problem, the first thing that I notice is that I have the words what number right here that indicates which piece is missing. The percent, 40%, is going to be written in its decimal form. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. And then I see that we have the number 100. The key to determining which is the part and which is the whole is to look at the two words that I've highlighted, of and is. Those two little words indicate operations and symbols in that equation. The word of actually represents a multiplication, and the word is could be extended to say is equal to. So we're looking for 40% of what number And that what number in the equation is the whole, so that's the whole that's missing, and that it equals 100, which is the part. So here you can see how the equation looks. 4/10 times the whole equals 100, which means percent times whole equals part. So now we're going to work on solving this. We've already set it up as an equation, but now we need to write it so that we can actually do the work to solve it. And this is what the equation looks like. 4/10 times W equals 100. This is a one-step equation that involves multiplication. And if I want to solve that equation, I need to do the inverse of multiplying, which is dividing. And in this case, the number that I need to divide by is the number in the multiplication problem. So I'm undoing multiplication, and the multiplication number is the 4/10. So that's the number that I'm dividing both sides of my equation by. And when I do that, I get W equals 100 divided by 4/10, which is 250. So the whole amount in this equation was 250. And what the problem now says, going up here, is 40% of 250 is 100. So the percent times the whole equals the part. Question 4 asks, what if the percent value is missing? So take a look at the example. What percent of 50 is 8? Let's go back to your highlighter and remember that the word of right here means to multiply. And the word is right here means is equal to. So now let's take a look at what we can do to translate this statement. What percent, so that's my P for percent, of 50 is 8. So I've replaced the word of with the multiplication dot, and I've replaced the word is with the equal sign. Again, I have a one-step equation. This time, when I divide on both sides to solve it, because I need to know the value of P, I'm going to again divide by the number that is in the multiplication, which is 50. So 50 is what gets divided on both sides. So P, as the percent, is equal to 8/50ths, or 8 divided by 50, which is 1600ths. Now, here's the trick. This is the decimal form for our percent. So how do we change that decimal back into a percent? We take our answer and we multiply by 100. So 16% of 50 is 8. Question 5 asks, what if the part value is missing? Well, in this case, actually, when the part is the piece missing from our equation, this is the easiest one of all to solve, because you will know the percent and the whole, and therefore you can just multiply them, like we did on the front side in that very first example. So in this case, the what number piece right here is the part. So the part, let's call it N for number, is equal to, so there's my equal sign, 30%, and again I need to write that 30% in its decimal form, of 105. So you can see here that my part is the N, my whole is the 105, and my percent is in its decimal form.
So to solve this, I simply need to multiply the 3/10 times the 105, and I get 31 and 5/10. Therefore, 31 and 5/10 is 30% of 105. And my helpful hint is, anytime you see the word of, you're going to replace it with the multiplication dot. So I'm going to do that in each of these problems before I even fill in numbers. And anytime I see the word is, I'm going to fill in with an equal sign. And then I'm going to take the numbers around the multiplication and the equal sign, and I'm going to fill those in as well. And again, don't forget, when you're given a percent, you need to write that percent in its decimal form in the problem. Then you can see which piece of your equation you're missing. So don't forget, the word of means to multiply. The word is means is equal to. When you are missing the piece in the multiplication problem, then you're either missing the whole or you're missing the percent. If you're missing the piece that is after or before the equal sign, you're missing the part. And to solve those, you solve them just like you would any other one-step equation.